and I got to know people very well very fast. And when they would share their testimonies, there was always that pinpointed time in their experience where God changed their life or something drastic happened. And so I continued to search for that. I was always questioning what's my struggle? I would always ask, what's my testimony? Because I feel like I don't really have something that God's brought me through. I sometimes would wish for things to happen so I would have a testimony. My name is Jada Lane. I am a sophomore here at Liberty. I'm on the rowing team, and this is my God story. So a little background about me. I was born in China, and at 11 months old, I was adopted by my parents. I live in East Tennessee, and I have been raised there ever since. Even coming here, I love going back. And I have a younger sister and a younger brother, and they are also adopted as well. So as I share my testimony, I just want it to be prominent that God's faithfulness and goodness is prominent all throughout my life. And it can be seen, one of my favorite verses and one of the verses that my parents prayed over me before they adopted me was Psalms 23:6, where it says, "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." That's a big, huge part of the beginning of my testimony, where God brought me from. And I've always been raised in a Christian home. And at the age of 4, I was involved in a Christian theater. So I did plays and stuff like that, and I absolutely loved it. And they were just such amazing people surrounding me. They were Christ-like, they lived like it, they showed His love everywhere. And it was really amazing just to see that and get involved in such a young age. And so around 8 years old, I decided that I wanted to make that life decision to follow Christ. I wanted to be like the people that were around me, that I looked up to, that I saw constantly every single day. And so then at 12, I decided to get baptized. And that's kind of like my walk before Christ. So all throughout my life, I struggled with life in general. Everyone struggles with different things. But one of the biggest things that was very prominent in my life that I kind of questioned a lot was I didn't know what my struggle was. I know that kind of sounds confusing, but this was a reoccurring thought that I had, just being surrounded by my church family, my own family, and my community that I had at the theater, and even at school. Everyone was very kind, very really awesome, and I got to know people very well very fast. And when they would share their testimonies, there was always that pinpointed time in their experience where God changed their life or something drastic happened. And so I continued to search for that. I was always questioning what's my struggle? I would always ask, what's my testimony? Because I feel like I don't really have something that God's brought me through. And I always tend to look on the positive side, but it was just really hard for me to I wanted to figure that out. I sometimes would wish for things to happen so I would have a testimony. And that was a big thing that I just constantly would think about all the time. So that was a big thought that I had, especially during middle school, kind of growing up. It was around the 10th grade, I randomly decided on my 16th birthday that I wanted to go on a mission trip. And that was not really a thought that I had had before, but it was just kind of like an urge. And so my mom made it happen. She was planning it all out, and I got to experience that mission trip. And I would say that was a very good point in my life where I could see the faithfulness of God, whereas before I kind of took it for granted, or I didn't really recognize it as well. But there I was wow, the experiences, the people that we got to meet, it was just so life-changing. And so I wanted to go back the next year to make sure that wasn't just a high, or that wasn't just another experience that I had that was just so amazing, like theater and school and church and everything like that. So I went back the next year, and I absolutely loved it again. I fell in love even more just seeing the intentionality that people had towards others. It doesn't matter where you're from, what you do, it was just the love of Christ, and you could just share it, and it was the best experience ever. And so from that point on, in 10th grade of high school, I was okay, I'm on fire for Jesus now. I know my purpose. And I feel for the longest time, I struggled with finding my purpose because I thought my purpose was in my testimony and I couldn't figure out what my testimony was. And so coming into college here, I was super excited. Now this is like a back thing. I don't really spend much time away from my family. I had not really spent time alone. Maybe 2 weeks was like the longest time. And last year was my freshman year, and I really recognized this just as a person and as an individual. I was like, kind of feeling down and, kind of confused about what was happening and everything. I was like, I thought this was going to be so amazing, that this Christian experience was going to help me grow even further, and it really has. It's just not the way that I thought. And so being here, I realized that I was alone. I was isolated from my family, my church family, my community that I had at the theater, and all the other things that, like amazing things that I was surrounded by. They were all gone, and I was here by myself. And that really showed me how dependent I was for other people's belief, and I was very dependent on that carrying my relationship with Christ. And so that's where I was like, oh, a little curveball. God's like, you gotta know me for sure. And I learned and I grew from my experiences in the first semester, and during the second semester of last year, I rededicated my life to Christ, just because I had realized that I did not have that personal relationship with Him, because I think I almost thought it was a given that I had gained that when I was younger, or that I had just lived through that. And that was another thing. All the time when I was growing up, people would be like, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. You just shine the light of Christ. Just the joy and happiness that you have is just like so amazing. I'm glad that you think I'm amazing, but there's something missing. And I figured that out closer to last year, that it was the personal relationship with Christ that I was missing. I relied on others to carry that, and then when I was stripped away from that and I was isolated from that, God really showed me how much I needed Him. And so I grew so much, and just like hearing about God's story and what He's doing in the world and how our lives are orchestrated over that, it's like grown my knowledge so much. And so that's the biggest thing that I've learned in my life, is that personal relationship is really, really special, and that's my purpose. My purpose starts with having the personal relationship with Christ, because without it, I didn't really have one. I was kind of just searching, kind of piggybacking off of other people. So now knowing that, I have true joy. And I was reading that in Philippians. It was saying like, happiness comes from happenings and joy comes from Christ. And that just really changed my perspective on literally everything, because I was always happy, but now I'm joyful. And so that's just been a big thing in my life. And one other thing is like, the song, The Goodness of God, that's just such a testament to what my life has been so far. All my life, you have been faithful. All my life, you've been so, so good. It's just seeing His mercies every day and recognizing that and taking it for granted and not being oblivious to it. That's the biggest thing that I've learned.